Yellow, I am Mario, and this Christmas I decided to really cheap out on the presents for my family. See, on one hand I am broke, and I really don't have much money. Most of my money is usually confiscated by my girlfriend at the start of every month, as girlfriends usually do. Or is used to buy some power tools for my woodshop, as men, or woodworkers, usually do. Well, only if my girlfriend allows it, of course. But most importantly, I just didn't want to spend money on Christmas gifts. For them. For both my sisters, specifically. Not in a mean way, just in a selfish, egotistical kind of way. You can get behind that, right? So I went downstairs and I got to thinking, what can I do? See, I usually build tables, beds, and whatever that is. See, I wanted to make something small. Something you can put in a bag on a plane, because they're flying in from another country for Christmas and they're flying back afterwards, because that is how planes work and stuff. So I started to think about cutting boards. I thought, I meditated, I walked through woods, smelled some trees, touched some sand in the ocean, breathed in some air in the city. Pollution. And then went on Pinterest, aka modern day idea brainstorming. I searched for $400 cutting boards to get some inspiration, and I found these. I thought end grain cutting boards looked very fancy. And like any 23-year-old guy with a little bit too much self-esteem, I thought, yeah, I can do that. Also, Christmas is in 10 days, so I really just need to get going at this point, and any idea is a good idea. Start epic 10 days Christmas countdown. First things first, I need to select some pallet wood. As cutting boards are rather small, I try to use mostly the smaller boards of the wood stock. I roughly measure them to be minimum of 40 centimeters in length. Pallet wood is actually very interesting wood. It often has a lot of character and story to it. This one here, for instance, looks like a bear took a bite out of it. And this one has still some metal stringers inside of it, which of course you have to take out. Or well, something no bueno will happen. After cleaning these beauties up, I cut them roughly to size and gave them all straight edges. I decided the cutting boards shouldn't be too tall or too thin. Around 3 centimeters felt right. I ripped them to 3.2 centimeters though, just to give myself some room, in case I needed to plane them later. 7 days till Christmas, I think. I think Christmas changes a lot when you get older. At least, for me it has. I always associated Christmas with some sort of transactional thing. It was a special date of the year where you could ask stuff from your parents, or well, from Santa Claus. That was usually a bit more expensive, which you couldn't or shouldn't ask for on a regular day. So you kind of had to play it smart, what you wanted to get. Making a list and everything, there was quite a bit of fun in that. Now that I'm older, things have changed though. You suddenly get a monthly paycheck and feel a bit more free, I guess, because now you can buy the stuff you actually want. But now your values have also changed. Maybe you are not as interested anymore in having that newest Lego city set, and are maybe more focused in spending that money where your passion lies. Maybe you love woodworking, so you spend a lot of it trying to make that dream come true. Maybe you are starting a business, so your paycheck goes there. Or you're just saving for your future. Suddenly, Christmas loses a bit of that excitement. Or maybe it just changes. As you have more means now and can usually get what you want, Christmas is less about the presents and more about the things you can't buy, like family, and the Christmas routine you enjoy together. The experience of it. After laying the boards together on my old IKEA table, I noticed that I had a few boards too many and could actually do a third cutting board. At that point of time, I still hadn't a present for my girlfriend's dad, and because he's a great cook, I decided to also make him one. But a very different one. You'll see. Of course, I had to glue them all up, which I'm kind of getting better and worse at the same time. I used to glue up boards using my finger, but I've recently figured out that you can just use a small paintbrush. However, I need to learn much more still. Because even though I used some straighteners during the glue up to prevent the wood from shifting and twisting, I must have used too much clamping pressure because, well, the glued up wood ended up warped again. Glue ups are my true nemesis. So since the wood was a bit concave now, I brought the glued up blocks to my routing station again, to give them a flat surface again. And then use my planer to flatten the other side as well. Five days till Christmas. As we are doing end grain cutting boards, I still had to cut the boards a few times each, so that the end grain of the wood looks up. The end grain of the wood is actually the hardest part of the wood. Making an end grain cutting board means a lot more work for the woodworker, but chefs enjoy them much more because they last longer, are more resistant, and in general look prettier. I did that for both the boards I'm gifting to my sisters and started gluing them up. As I mentioned before, I have a different idea for the cutting board I'm gifting to my girlfriend's dad. I looked back on Pinterest and I remembered seeing a cutting board with a handle shaped to it. I'm really not great at drawing, as you can obviously tell. But eventually I got the rough design down so that I took out my jigsaw to make my artistic paintings a reality. After the glue ups finally dried, I ran them through my planer again to even out the whole board. Unfortunately, when I did, I got a lot of tear out at the ends of the cutting boards. This has to do with the way the blades spin in the thickness planer and how the grain of the wood is vertically positioned. Nevertheless, this wasn't a big deal, because I just grabbed the two boards and cut those edges off with my table saw sled. One of the most important things woodworkers do to make their creations better is to use a router to shape the edges of their work. If you didn't, the edges of the wood would stay very sharp and not nice to touch. I use the round over bit for the cutting boards so that the edges flow down like an infinity pool. "3 days till Christmas." Lucky for me, there was only a few more things to do. Of course, like any project, I had to sand it. It was much less painful than other projects because it was much less surface to sand. After sanding the boards to 240 grit, I started applying some cutting board oil on it. It actually brought out a lot of the color and the hidden grain of the wood, which made me really happy. Christmas Day. On Christmas Day, my family usually goes out for a walk in nature. We usually walk on the beach, but this year we went wandering in one of our forests close by. And I used this opportunity to take the cutting boards for my sisters with me, so that I could take some fancy videos of some very fancy cutting boards.
Oh yeah, shoot, I put in the title that the cutting boards are worth $400 each. So let me just text my sisters to see if they would pay $400 for these cutting boards. Okay, let's try the other one.